Shalom Aleichem, my holy brothers and sisters, and do we have a wonderful story today, a Kotel Stories podcast. So, it was the 1800s, and Rav Shalom Sharabi, who is one of the greatest mystics, the greatest Kabbalists to ever walk the streets of Yerushalayim, was doing what he always did. He was going in the middle of the night down to the Kotel, down to the Western Wall. He was the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the Beit El Yeshiva, and every night he would go and pray the special midnight prayers, praying, "Woe to me, for the Shekhinah, God's presence, is in exile." And this prayer is still done by many tzaddikim, but in any case, that was his practice. But this particular night, he was so immersed in his prayers that he let out a scream, "Oi!" And the thing is, the Kotel at that time was surrounded by Muslims who would often harass Jews as they went down to the Western Wall. And this time it was they who felt like they had been harassed because they were woken up by the rabbi's scream. They quickly found out who it was. They knew it was the Rashash. And the Mufti, the leader, devised an evil, wicked scheme. The next morning, he hired goons who would take knives and clubs and surprise the rabbi. So indeed, the next morning, the rabbi went with his gabbai, his helper, and their lantern, walking the cobblestone streets of the Western Wall, when suddenly the gabbai saw these goons, and he was so scared. But the Rashash, the holy mystic, looked at him and said, "Don't fear, just keep walking." And at that moment, the goons stood frozen, unable to move. And the rabbi went and said his prayers, thanking God for the miracle. The next morning, they still stood there, those goons, frozen, and word spread like wildfire. The Mufti had no choice. He gathered the Muslim leaders. They went to the Rashash of Shalom Sharabi at the Beit El synagogue. They bowed and they said, "Please heal our brothers. Pray for them." The Rashash said, "I had nothing to do with it. This must have been the work of God." But they wouldn't take no for an answer. So the Rashash said, "Okay, I'll pray for them, but under one condition, that the Jews will be allowed to say a prayer whenever they want at the Western Wall without being harassed." And so it was. The prayer was said, the men were unfrozen, and the Jews were allowed to pray at their Western Wall. We take it for granted that we can just pray without anyone harassing us, but indeed it wasn't always like that. And it was in the merit of the sacrifice of those who never forgot Yerushalayim, the Western Wall, that we are able to pray there so joyously today. I hope you enjoyed this story. It's from the book Where Heaven Touches Earth, which is quoting from the book Yisachar and Zvulun, an ancient manuscript of stories. Have a wonderful day.